My name is Brad, SuperCoach Pro. This is the first video of the 2025 SuperCoach team preview in terms of fixtures, some players to look at, and particularly opening round. Gets us another look at some players before jumping on them before the round one starts. So the first thing we notice is opening round is different teams this year, of course. So we've got Brisbane, be the Cats. So hot watches quickly would be Kitty Coleman, Bailey Smith. We get one round to look at them before deciding if that we want them in our sides or not. Sydney, Calvin Mills watch, Hawthorn, Will Day, Gold Coast, Flanders to see if he retains that back roll. Where's he playing this season for the Suns? Dimmer had him literally in all three positions this year: midfield, forward, and defence. And played well in all of them. So there's only Suns play I'm really looking at this year. Took can get staffed, and so can others, and Real for that matter. And then Essendon, I'm too sure I'm on any Essendon players bubble at the moment. Maybe Zach Merritt, of course, but that's really about it. And then Giants and Collingwood. Giants maybe Whitfield to have a look at, and Collingwood obviously Dacos. So opening round, Supercoach not relevant for too many players that we'd be looking at in terms of potentially discounted players, but it will not vary our teams as much as it did last year. I feel we won't be so hot to jump on some random player that scored huge just to think that they're going to retain that over the next 20-something weeks. And then round one, of course, it starts on a Thursday. So there'll be a lot of Thursday games this year, leading up until the buys, of course. So round two's got a buy, round one, of course, round three, four. What do we got? Round five as well, gather round. So it just keeps going. So the early games are going to be quite annoying for lockouts next year, Thursdays. But the teams to look at this year as well for your buy, Primos in particular, would be St Kilda and Fremantle players. And now, don't do what I did last year and load up on too many because it actually hurt me bad with Fremantle Port Adelaide. But certainly Fremantle, St Kilda players, so Primos like Sinclair. Don't know if I want to go Jack Steele this year, another year older. Maybe, obviously, Philpoo's in my tab up there, so I'll definitely give Philpoo a shot. From Fremantle side of things, I'm not going near Bolton, as exciting as a player as he is. He's not super relevant for me. But definitely look at Sarong and Brayshaw. I think they could be handy players. Luke Jackson, I know it's a bit of a crazy one, but he might be to cover the buy that I'm thinking about picking two ruckmen in the same buy, and that's around 12 by North and Carlton. So DeConning and Cherry, if you need someone to play that ruck position for, one of those two players, of course, because both will be not playing that round. I feel like a handy option could be Luke Jackson, considering he also could come into play if you've got a forward ruck, swing, DPP, and you don't want to trade out a 2-week injury for Cherry or something like that with a concussion or whatever goes on. He could be someone you look at. So Luke Jackson's a little bit of a sneaky pod. I might look into my forward on next season, or this season, whatever you want to call it, next year, I'm going to say. But, so that's a little bit to look at. And St Kilda players, maybe have to look at more Primos in there. I have to have a better think of just more than two players. But the forward one's where I want to start today. I'll do some midfield players. This is my watch list, basically. Doesn't potentially mean I'm going to pick them all, but it's just a starting point. I might actually do them in order of ones I actually like from most likely to least likely. So my first one, surprisingly, and I've never been a huge fan, is Horn Francis. But he's got forward status this year, I'm hearing. So that's one thing to keep an eye out. 99 last year. He's in your forward line. He's pretty much locked. He's 22 next year. And by the time the season comes around, he'll be 22. So we know what he can do. I think his numbers speak for himself. Like, you'd be pretty happy in your forward line if you're scoring these numbers, like 80s, 90s, 100s. He has big games as well, so he could be a sneaky BC every now and then. And he plays Tigers early on as well, so it might not be the worst shout. So, well, Francis on my radar. Now, the next few picks, who would I be interested in first? And the next one's probably Philpoo. I know it's a big call, considering he's got the least data, and he's only 20. So I think it's just what St Kilda need in their midfield. They didn't really draft, top end midfielders this year. Obviously, the first two picks was like a halfback flanker and a key position player. But his back end, 112, 101, 85, and 80. I think that's pretty solid for a guy that's going to be pretty cheap up forward. So he's my number 2 watch list forward line wise. I think he's a huge breakout contender here. 3, what are we going to go 3? There's a few tabs. But for Jackson McRae has to be 3, doesn't he? I know this is a weird 1, 2, 3 and probably very speculative, but this is a matter of opinion. It's probably to do more with his age. Like he's going to be 31 or close to that anyway. Well, that's more end of season. Regardless, he's 30 years old. He's in the midfield. We know that midfield will start to decline around that 30 age anyway. And he's got the scoring capability, but if he's playing that forward on high half forward, I'm not interested. So it'll be just a watch. Wanted to see what the role was in St Kilda's midfield. We'll give you if he plays in the preseason in the midfield, I'll probably be tempted to grab him, considering how cheap he'd be. Bailey Smith's not going to be a forward. I don't know why I left that tab up there. Caleb Daniel, maybe he's got to be higher on this list, but I think he's a forward this year on SuperCoach. I'd say all of these scoring are from that halfback flank, that 1-2 game style that he likes. So those 45-metre kicks or those little 30-metre chip kicks he likes to do. So he's certainly thereabouts in the mark. He'll be cheap enough, and he's at North Melbourne, so hopefully it's like a McKercher and him sort of roll down back. Interesting, like where does Sheasel and McKercher play next year? Maybe some North fans will have to confirm. Obviously, you'd think Sheasel will stay in the midfield, but does McKercher get more midfield time as well now that Daniel's going to be there? Does Fino Sutherland play halfback flank instead? What do they do, those sort of players? So I think he's next on the list. Luke Parker, and then I'll finish up with the Luke Jackson in my forward line video. So Luke Parker, 32 next season. He's got the scores on the board, had a fair few injuries, and not best 22 sometimes, maybe. Potentially that's why he wants to get out of the side. But I don't know. He's been such a good player for so long. We know what he can do. Depending on his price, he's probably one of the last players on the list. Talk about SuperCoach wise, considering how he did in the finals as well. A lot of sub-off games too, hence why the average is so bad. But he is one definitely to have a look at. And then the last one, which is one that no one will probably be looking at, but like I said, is my ruck cover potentially at F6. But worst case scenario, if I actually save my trades this year and get a spare, I could use him for that ruck line to cover 1 or 2 weak injuries like I did last year. I don't know if it was Gorn or somebody had in my ruck that I actually used Jackson to cover without having to use trades. So it was actually pretty decent. And in the forward line, he scored 97 and 94, giving a lot of those scores were from ruck when Darcy's been injured. So what does he do? Does he have breakout years of forward? 24 years old. Got Shy Bolton down there as well now. A few other players they've grabbed. So surely it makes players like Jackson better. And he'll be at that 100-game mark next year anyway. So probably primed for another good season, you'd think. And he's probably my F6 kind of player that will move to F7 at some point. So probably one no one will do any forward-on videos about. I'm definitely looking at him just for the buy coverage and for those Cherry and who's the other guy, DeConning coverage over the season. So that would be the 2 hottest ruckmen, I think, to pick. I'm not interested in this year in Roland Marshall. I think he can get stuffed after what he did last year. Grundy, no for me. So it'll probably just be, Cherry was an absolute VC and C beast for me last year, so he's an absolute lock. So, it's just a matter of hoping they don't get injured, because you don't really want Luke Jackson to cover a 5 or 6 week injury. You'd rather just trade out your premium ruckman than have to field Jacko there. But he's at the right enough bracket where I think he'll finish top 10 in the forward line, regardless of how expensive he is. So I'll leave the forward line video there and the fixture video there, and then I'll do some midfields and defenders and then rookies as well. So I'll post these videos out today. So cheers. Thanks for watching.